Welcome to Twilight Fables, a place where stories unfold slowly, where the past is remembered not through noise or urgency, but through quiet reflection and gentle presence. Tonight, we journey into the life of Liu Bei, a man shaped not by power alone, but by patience, compassion, and the steady rhythm of a world that was always changing around him. As you settle in, allow the day to soften and drift away. There is nothing you need to hold on to, nothing you need to solve. Simply rest here and let the story carry you gently through a life lived with quiet strength and enduring connection. In the quiet years near the fading strength of the Han dynasty, long before the land would divide and names would be remembered across generations, a child was born into a world that still moved with a gentle rhythm. Liu Bei entered life not in a place of power or recognition, but in simplicity, where each day followed the soft rise and fall of light, and where life was measured not by ambition, but by the steady continuity of ordinary moments. Though it would later be said that his lineage traced back, however distantly, to the imperial family of the Han, this connection lived quietly in the background of his early life, more like a distant echo than something tangible. It was not a title he carried, nor a privilege he experienced. Instead, his childhood unfolded much like that of those around him, shaped by modest means, quiet responsibility, and a world that asked little beyond presence and patience. The home he grew up in was not grand, but it was steady. There was a sense of warmth within it, not from wealth, but from familiarity. The walls held the quiet sounds of daily life, the gentle movement of routine, the kind of rhythm that settles deeply into a person without needing to be noticed. His mother, who played a central role in his upbringing, carried herself with a quiet strength, guiding not through force, but through consistency. From her, Liu Bei absorbed a sense of responsibility that felt natural rather than imposed. Much of his youth was spent close to the land. The fields stretched outward in soft, uneven lines, shaped by seasons that arrived without haste. In the mornings, the air would carry a light coolness, and the ground beneath his feet would still hold the memory of night. As the day moved forward, warmth would settle gradually, and with it, the quiet work that defined village life would begin. These were not hurried tasks. They unfolded slowly, allowing time to pass without resistance. Liu Bei often worked with his hands, contributing in ways that were simple yet meaningful. It is remembered that he wove straw sandals, a task that required patience above all else. Each strand had to be placed with care, each movement deliberate and unforced. There was no rushing this process, no way to force it forward. The work itself demanded presence, and in meeting that demand, Liu Bei developed a quiet focus that would remain with him long after these early years. There is something deeply grounding in repetitive, steady work, something that allows the mind to settle while the hands remain engaged. For Liu Bei, these moments were not burdensome. They were calm, almost meditative, offering a kind of stillness that did not depend on silence, but on rhythm. As he worked, the world around him continued in its own gentle way, the sound of distant voices, the soft movement of wind through open space, the subtle shift of light as the day slowly unfolded. Even as a child, there was a noticeable calmness in his presence. He did not seek attention, nor did he feel the need to stand apart. Instead, he moved through his surroundings with a quiet awareness, observing more than reacting, listening more than speaking. Others may have spoken quickly, their words filling the space between them, but Liu Bei allowed silence to exist without discomfort. In that silence, there was room to understand, to notice the small details that often went unseen. In the evenings when the work of the day began to settle, the village would soften into a quieter state. Lanterns would be lit one by one, their warm glow casting gentle light against the deepening blue of the sky. Conversations would drift through narrow paths, carried lightly on the air. Never urgent, never overwhelming. These were moments of connection, where people gathered not out of necessity, but out of shared presence. Liu Bei often sat among them, not as someone leading the conversation, but as someone fully present within it. He listened to stories, to small concerns, to reflections on the day that had passed. There was no need for him to respond to everything. His presence alone carried a quiet reassurance, a sense that he was there, attentive and steady. It is in these small, unremarkable moments that the foundation of his character was formed, not through grand lessons, but through consistent, gentle experience. Beyond the village, the wider world was already beginning to shift, though these changes arrived slowly, like distant clouds gathering at the edge of the horizon. The Han dynasty, which had long provided structure and stability, was beginning to weaken. There were whispers of unrest, of imbalance within the court, of tensions that had yet to fully surface. But for now, these were distant concerns, not yet pressing upon the daily lives of those in quieter regions. Still, there is a sense that Liu Bei, even at a young age, was aware of something beyond what could be seen directly. Not in a clear or defined way, but in a subtle feeling, an understanding that the world was not entirely fixed, that change, though slow, was always present beneath the surface. This awareness did not create urgency within him. Instead, it seemed to deepen his sense of patience, as though he instinctively understood that rushing would not bring clarity. There is a quiet image that lingers when reflecting on these early years. Liu Bei standing at the edge of a field as the day begins to close, the sky softening into warm tones, the air calm and still. There is no pressure in that moment, no sense of what must come next. Only presence, only the gentle awareness of being where he is, without needing to move beyond it. In that stillness, something steady takes root. Not ambition, not desire for recognition, but a quiet sense of care, a growing awareness of others, of their needs, their struggles, their unspoken thoughts. He does not yet act upon it in any grand way, but it is there, forming slowly, like a foundation that does not reveal its importance until much later. The simplicity of his beginnings would remain with him, even as the world around him changed. It would shape the way he approached others, the way he carried responsibility, and the way he remained grounded when everything else began to shift. But in these early moments, none of that is yet visible. There is only a young man living within the gentle rhythm of his surroundings, unaware of how far that quiet steadiness will carry him. And as the night settles softly over this beginning, there is nothing to rush toward, nothing to anticipate, only the calm unfolding of a life, just beginning to take shape, held gently within the stillness of its earliest days. As the quiet beginnings of Liu Bei's life continued to unfold, the world around him remained steady on the surface. Yet beneath that stillness, subtle changes were already beginning to take form. These changes did not arrive all at once, nor did they disrupt the gentle rhythm of daily life immediately. Instead, they moved slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the gradual shift of seasons that can only be understood in hindsight. The land itself played a quiet but constant role in shaping him. The fields were not always generous, nor were they harsh without reason. They existed in balance, offering what they could when tended with care, and asking for patience in return. Each season carried its own character. Spring brought a soft sense of renewal, where the earth seemed to awaken without urgency. Summer followed with a gentle fullness, the warmth settling steadily rather than sharply. Autumn carried a quieter tone, one of reflection and preparation, while winter introduced stillness, a time when the land itself seemed to rest. Through these cycles, Liu Bei learned something that could not be taught through words. He came to understand that effort alone was not enough, and that timing, patience, and acceptance were just as important. There were moments when work yielded results, and others when it did not, despite the same care being given. Instead of frustration, this seemed to cultivate a deeper sense of calm within him, an ability to remain steady even when outcomes were uncertain. The village life around him mirrored this same rhythm. People worked, rested, gathered, and separated in ways that felt natural rather than forced. There was a quiet interdependence among them, where each person's role, no matter how small, contributed to the overall balance of the community. Liu Bei observed this closely, not as something to analyze, but as something to absorb. He began to understand that strength did not always come from standing apart, but often from being part of something shared. Conversations within the village often carried a softness to them, even when they spoke of concerns or difficulties. People did not always look for solutions immediately. Sometimes it was enough to be heard, to have their thoughts acknowledged without judgment. Liu Bei, who had always been inclined to listen, found himself naturally drawn into these moments. He did not interrupt or rush to respond. Instead, he allowed space to exist, and in that space, others found a quiet comfort. As he grew older, the distant murmurs of change within the Han dynasty began to feel slightly closer, though still not immediate. Travelers passing through would occasionally speak of unrest, of tensions within the court, of regions where order no longer felt as secure as it once had. These stories were shared calmly, without dramatization, but they carried a subtle weight. They suggested that the stability people had long relied upon was not as certain as it seemed. For Liu Bei, these stories did not create fear. Instead, they seemed to deepen his sense of awareness. He listened to them in the same way he listened to everything else, quietly, without rushing to form conclusions. There was a growing understanding within him that the world extended far beyond the boundaries of his village, and that the balance he had come to know was not universal. Even so, his daily life did not change drastically. He continued to work, to observe, to exist within the same gentle rhythm that had shaped his early years. But now, there was an added layer beneath it all, a quiet recognition that things could shift, that what felt steady today might not remain so forever. This awareness did not disturb his calm. Instead, it seemed to reinforce it, as though he understood that reacting too quickly would not bring clarity. There were moments when he would walk beyond the immediate edges of the village, not with a destination in mind, but simply to be alone with his thoughts. The land stretched outward in soft, uneven patterns, shaped more by nature than by design. In these quiet spaces, away from conversation and activity, there was a different kind of stillness, one that allowed his thoughts to settle more deeply. He did not seek answers in these moments. He did not try to define his future or place within the world. Instead, he allowed himself to simply exist within it, to observe without needing to interpret. This ability to remain present without forcing meaning became one of his quiet strengths, though it would not be recognized as such until much later. The people around him began to notice his steadiness more clearly as he matured. It was not something he spoke about or demonstrated openly, but it was present in the way he responded to situations, or sometimes in the way he chose not to respond at all. Where others might react quickly, he remained composed. Where uncertainty created tension, he carried a quiet ease that seemed to settle those around him. This did not make him distant or detached. On the contrary, it allowed him to be more present with others. He was not distracted by the need to control outcomes or assert himself. Instead, he was able to meet people where they were, offering attention and understanding without expectation. This quality, subtle as it was, began to form the foundation of the trust others placed in him. As the years continued to pass, the sense of change beyond the village grew slightly more defined. The Han dynasty's weakening structure was no longer just a distant idea, but something that could be felt more clearly through the stories and experiences of those who traveled. Still, these changes did not rush into Liu Bei's life. They approached slowly, as though allowing him time to grow into the person he would need to become. And through it all, the land remained constant. The seasons continued their quiet cycle, unaffected by the shifting structures of power beyond them. The fields still required care. The mornings still arrived with soft light, and the evenings still settled into calm reflection. This continuity provided a grounding presence, something that remained steady even as the wider world began to change. In this environment, Liu Bei's character deepened, not through dramatic moments, but through the accumulation of quiet experiences. Each day added something small yet meaningful, shaping him in ways that could not be rushed or forced. By the time the world would call him forward into greater responsibility, he would carry with him not only skill or knowledge, but a deeply rooted sense of patience, awareness, and calm. And as this part of his life gently comes to rest, there is no clear boundary between what has passed and what is to come. Only a soft continuation, where the stillness of his early world remains within him, even as the path ahead begins to open, slowly and without urgency, into something more. As the world beyond his quiet upbringing began to draw a little closer, the path of Liu Bei gradually led him toward others who carried a similar sense of purpose, though each expressed it in their own way. These meetings did not arrive with urgency or dramatic turning points. Instead, they unfolded naturally, as though shaped by the same steady rhythm that had guided his life from the beginning. It was during this period that Liu Bei encountered two men who would become inseparable parts of his journey, Guan and Zhang. Their meeting is often remembered as meaningful, yet when viewed through a quieter lens, it feels less like a moment of destiny and more like a recognition that had been waiting to happen. Guan carried himself with a composed and measured presence. There was a stillness in him that did not come from withdrawal, but from clarity. His actions were deliberate, his words few, but thoughtful. And there was a sense that he moved through the world with a clear understanding of what mattered to him. In many ways, his nature aligned easily with Liu Bei's own calm and reflective temperament. Zhang, by contrast, brought a different energy. Where Guan was steady and reserved, Zhang was expressive, direct, and full of life. His presence filled a space more visibly, yet beneath that energy was a sincerity that could not be mistaken. He was not guided by subtlety, but by honesty, responding to the world as he felt it, rather than holding back. This contrast did not create imbalance. Instead, it brought a sense of completeness to their connection, each of them offering something the others did not need to force or imitate. The bond that formed between the three of them was not built quickly, nor was it declared through grand gestures alone. It developed through shared time, through conversations that unfolded without pressure, and through a growing trust that did not require constant reassurance. It is often said that they swore brotherhood, a symbolic act that represented their commitment to one another. But beyond the symbolism, what truly mattered was the quiet understanding that had already taken root between them. There were moments when they would sit together in stillness, away from the movement of others, allowing conversation to come and go without urgency. At times, they spoke of the world, of the changes they had begun to notice, of the uncertainty that seemed to be growing beyond the edges of everyday life. At other times, they spoke of simpler things, or said nothing at all, finding comfort in the presence of one another, without the need to fill every moment with words. In these shared spaces, Liu Bei's nature found a kind of reflection. With Guan there was a shared sense of calm, an unspoken agreement to move thoughtfully rather than react quickly. With Zhang, there was warmth, a reminder that life did not need to be carried with quiet restraint alone, but could also be felt openly and directly. Together, they formed a balance that allowed each of them to remain true to themselves while still moving forward as one. As their connection deepened, there was a gradual shift in Liu Bei's path. Where he had once moved quietly within the boundaries of his village and surroundings, he now began to step outward, not alone, but alongside those he trusted. This shift did not feel forced or sudden. It was a natural extension of the relationships he had built, as though the presence of these companions made the wider world feel less distant, less uncertain. The changes in the land, once subtle and far away, now felt closer. The weakening of the Han dynasty was no longer just something spoken of by passing travelers. It was becoming a reality that could be sensed more directly, affecting the lives of people in ways that were no longer easy to ignore. Yet even as these changes became more apparent, Liu Bei did not rush forward in response. Instead, he moved with the same steady awareness that had always guided him, now supported by those who stood beside him. There is a quiet strength in companionship that does not rely on constant affirmation. It exists in the understanding that one is not alone, that decisions do not need to be carried in isolation, and that even in uncertainty, there is shared ground to stand upon. For Liu Bei, this was perhaps one of the most meaningful shifts in his life. Not the movement toward greater responsibility, but the realization that he would not walk that path alone. As time passed, their presence became something familiar, almost like a continuation of the rhythm Liu Bei had known in his earlier years, now expanded beyond a single place. The three of them moved forward together, not with urgency, but with a quiet sense of direction, shaped by trust rather than force. And as this part of the journey settles into stillness, there is a sense that something important has taken root. Not a plan, not a goal, but a connection strong enough to carry them through whatever changes may come. The night deepens gently around them, and within that calm, their bond rests quietly, steady and enduring, as the path ahead continues to unfold. As the quiet bond between Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang continued to deepen, the world around them began to shift in ways that could no longer remain at the edges of awareness. What had once been distant murmurs of instability within the Han dynasty gradually took on a more defined presence, not as sudden disruption, but as a slow and steady unraveling that touched even the quieter regions of the land. There was no single moment where everything changed. Instead, the transformation unfolded gently, almost quietly, as though the structure that had long held the empire together was loosening thread by thread. Local communities began to feel the absence of consistency, not in dramatic ways, but through subtle disruptions in order, in trust, and in the quiet confidence that things would continue as they always had. For Liu Bei, this shift did not create urgency in the way it might have for others. He did not rush forward with the desire to claim position or influence. Instead, he approached this changing world with the same steady awareness that had shaped his earlier years. He observed first, listened carefully, and allowed himself to understand the needs of those around him before deciding how to move. With Guan Yu and Zhang beside him, this process felt grounded rather than uncertain. Each of them responded to the changing world in their own way, yet their shared foundation kept them aligned. Guan Yu's composed nature offered a quiet sense of clarity, allowing decisions to be made without haste. Zhang Fei's directness brought immediacy when it was needed, ensuring that hesitation did not become inaction. And Liu Bei, at the center of this balance, carried a steady intention that guided them forward without force. Their involvement in the wider events of the time began not with ambition, but with a sense of responsibility. There were communities that needed stability, people who felt the quiet weight of uncertainty, and situations where a calm presence could make a difference. Liu Bei did not see himself as someone above these people, but as someone among them, shaped by the same world, responding to the same changes. When they moved from place to place, it was not with the heaviness of conquest, but with a quiet purpose. The roads they traveled carried the same gentle qualities as the paths Liu Bei had walked in his youth, though now they stretched further, connecting him to a broader landscape. Along these journeys, he encountered people from many different backgrounds, each carrying their own experiences of the shifting times. He listened to them, in the same way he always had, without interruption, without judgment. Their concerns, their uncertainties, their quiet hopes all became part of his understanding. In this way, his role began to take shape, not through declaration, but through presence. People were drawn not to authority, but to the steadiness he offered, to the sense that he would not act without thought or speak without care. There were moments where decisions had to be made, where paths diverged, and direction became necessary. Even then, Liu Bei did not approach these moments with tension. He allowed space for consideration, for quiet discussion with Guan and Zhang, where each voice could be heard without urgency. These conversations were not driven by the need to control outcomes, but by a shared intention to move in a way that felt aligned with their values. As their presence grew more noticeable, so too did the awareness of others within the broader landscape of the Three Kingdoms era. Figures of influence began to emerge, each shaping the world in their own way. Yet Liu Bei did not define himself in opposition to them, nor did he measure his path against theirs. He remained focused on the people immediately around him, on the relationships he had built, and on the quiet responsibility he felt toward those who placed their trust in him. The weakening of the Han dynasty continued in the background, not as a dramatic collapse, but as a gradual fading of structure that allowed new paths to form. For Liu Bei, this did not represent an opportunity for gain, but a call to remain steady, to offer something stable in a time that no longer felt certain. There is a sense, in this part of his life, that movement and stillness exist together. Though he travels, though his role expands, there is still an inner calm that remains unchanged. The same patience he learned in the fields, the same quiet awareness shaped by village life, continues to guide him even as the world grows more complex. In the evenings when the day's movement begins to settle, there are still moments of quiet reflection, perhaps sitting beside a dim light, or beneath an open sky. Liu Bei allows the experiences of the day to rest without overthinking them. Guan may sit nearby in composed silence, while Zhang Fei's presence, though more lively, softens as the night deepens. These moments feel familiar, almost like a return to something earlier, a reminder that even as life changes, its quieter elements remain. As this part of the journey gently comes to rest, there is no sharp transition, no sudden shift, only a gradual continuation, where Liu Bei's role in the world becomes more defined, not through force, but through consistency. The path ahead remains uncertain, but it does not feel overwhelming. It unfolds slowly, as it always has, guided by a steady presence that does not need to rush in order to move forward. As the path of Liu Bei continued to unfold, shaped by steady movement and quiet intention, there came a time when his journey began to draw him toward a presence known not for power, but for clarity. In a world that was gradually becoming more uncertain, there were those whose understanding seemed to rest on something deeper than circumstance. And among them was Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang lived away from the constant movement of shifting influence, in a place where the pace of life remained calm and undisturbed. His surroundings reflected a certain stillness, where thought could settle without interruption, and where understanding could grow without urgency. It was here that Liu Bei chose to go, not once, but multiple times, each visit carried out with patience rather than expectation. These visits are often remembered for their persistence, yet when viewed gently, they reveal something more subtle about Liu Bei's nature. He did not demand attention, nor did he expect immediate answers. Instead, he allowed space for the connection to form naturally, understanding that meaningful alignment cannot be forced. With each visit, there was a quiet respect, not only for Zhuge Liang's insight, but for his way of life, for the calm in which that insight had been cultivated. When they finally met in earnest, the moment did not need to be dramatic. There was no urgency in their exchange, no need to establish roles or authority. Instead, there was a quiet recognition, as though both understood something unspoken. Zhuge Liang, with his thoughtful presence and measured way of speaking, offered ideas not as commands, but as reflections. Liu Bei received them not as instructions, but as perspectives to be considered with care. Their conversations likely unfolded slowly, allowing time between thoughts, where silence itself held meaning. In these pauses, there was no discomfort, only a shared understanding that clarity often comes not from rushing forward, but from allowing things to settle naturally. Liu Bei listened as he always had, fully present, without interruption, absorbing not only the words, but the intention behind them. What formed between them was not simply a partnership, but a quiet alignment. Zhuge Liang's insight complemented Liu Bei's steady nature, each balancing the other without conflict. Where Liu Bei carried a deep sense of care for people, Zhuge Liang brought a broader perspective, an ability to see patterns and possibilities that extended beyond the immediate moment. Together, they created a presence that felt both grounded and thoughtful, capable of moving forward without losing its sense of calm. This connection did not replace the bond Liu Bei shared with Guan and Zhang. Instead, it added another layer to it, expanding the circle of trust rather than altering its foundation. Guan composed loyalty remained steady. Zhang expressive warmth continued to bring balance. And now, Zhuge Liang's quiet wisdom joined them, not as something separate, but as something integrated. In the presence of these relationships, Liu Bei's role became clearer, though never rigid. He was not defined by authority, but by the way he held these connections together, allowing each person to remain true to themselves while still moving as one. There was no need for force in this dynamic, no need to assert control. The strength of their connection came from understanding, from the space they allowed one another to exist within. As they spent more time together, the rhythm of their interactions settled into something calm and natural. Discussions of responsibility and direction were approached with patience, each idea considered rather than rushed. There was an understanding that decisions carried weight, not in a burdensome way, but in the sense that they affected others, and therefore deserved care. Even in moments where uncertainty remained, there was no tension pressing against it. Instead, uncertainty was allowed to exist, acknowledged without needing immediate resolution. This approach created a sense of ease, where the absence of clear answers did not lead to discomfort, but to reflection. In quieter moments, Liu Bei may have found a certain reassurance in Zhuge Liang's presence, not because it removed difficulty, but because it offered a way to move through it without losing steadiness. Their connection was not built on dependency, but on mutual respect, where each trusted the other to remain grounded, even when the path ahead was unclear. The world around them continued to shift. Yet within this circle of trust, there was a sense of continuity. The values that had shaped Liu Bei's early life remained unchanged, now supported by the insight of Zhuge Liang and the enduring loyalty of Guan and Zhang. Together, they created a quiet stability that did not resist change, but moved through it with calm awareness. As this part of the journey settles, there is no need to define what comes next. The presence of Zhuge Liang does not mark a turning point of urgency, but a deepening of what already exists. The path continues, steady and unforced, guided not by ambition, but by understanding. And within that understanding, there is a quiet confidence, one that does not need to be spoken, only lived. As the years continued to pass, the life of Liu Bei moved forward with a quiet steadiness that remained unchanged at its core, even as the world around him continued to shift. The responsibilities he carried had grown, and the path he walked had extended far beyond the simple fields of his youth. Yet within him there was still the same calm presence, shaped long ago by patience, observation, and care. The bonds he had formed along the way remained central to his life, though they were no longer held in the same constant closeness as before. Time, distance, and the natural movement of life had begun to create space between him and those he trusted most. These changes did not arrive suddenly, nor did they feel like something to resist. Instead, they unfolded gradually, as all things seemed to in his life, allowing him to meet them with acceptance rather than urgency. The presence of Guan, once so consistently beside him, became something that existed not only in shared moments, but in memory and quiet reflection. Guan composed nature, his steady loyalty, and his clarity of purpose had long been a grounding force. Even when not physically near, those qualities remained, as though they had settled into Liu Bei's own way of being, continuing to guide him without needing to be seen. In a similar way, the connection with Zhang took on a different shape over time. Where Zhang's presence had once brought a visible warmth and immediacy, that energy now lingered more softly, carried through recollection and the lasting impression he had left behind. The liveliness he brought into their shared journey did not disappear. It simply became quieter, woven into Liu Bei's understanding of companionship in a more subtle way. These changes were not marked by dramatic sorrow or heavy grief. Instead, they carried a gentle weight, one that could be felt but did not overwhelm. Liu Bei did not hold tightly to what had shifted, nor did he turn away from it. He allowed these experiences to exist as part of his life's natural unfolding, understanding that connection does not end simply because form has changed. Beside him, the steady presence of Zhuge Liang remained, offering a quiet continuity through these transitions. Their relationship, already grounded in mutual respect, deepened further into something that required even fewer words. Conversations between them became more reflective, less about direction and more about understanding. There were moments when silence carried more meaning than speech, where simply being present together was enough. Zhuge Liang's insight continued to provide clarity, though not in a way that removed uncertainty entirely. Instead, it offered a way to move alongside it, to see beyond immediate concerns without losing connection to the present. Liu Bei, in turn, remained steady in his nature, offering a grounded presence that allowed those around him to feel at ease. even when the path ahead was not fully defined. As responsibilities continued, Liu Bei found himself holding a broader sense of care, not only for those closest to him, but for the many lives that had come to trust in his presence. This responsibility did not weigh heavily upon him in a burdensome way. Rather, it settled quietly, like something he had grown into over time, something that felt natural despite its scope. There were moments, especially in the quiet of evening, when reflection would come more fully. The movement of the day would slow, and the space between thoughts would widen, allowing memories to surface gently. These were not moments of regret, but of recognition, where the path he had walked could be seen not as a series of events, but as a continuous flow, each part connected to the next. He may have thought of earlier days, of the simplicity of his youth, of the quiet fields and soft conversations that shaped him. He may have reflected on the companionship of Guan and Zhang, on the steady understanding they shared, on the way their presence once filled the space around him. These reflections did not pull him backward. Instead, they rested beside him, offering a quiet sense of continuity, as though nothing had truly been lost, only transformed. In these later years, Liu Bei's presence itself began to change, becoming softer, less defined by action, and more by stillness. He no longer needed to move as frequently, nor did he feel the same pull to respond to every shift in the world around him. There was a quiet trust that what needed to be done would be done, whether by himself or by those who continued the path alongside him. The rhythm of his days slowed gently, allowing space for longer pauses, for deeper rest between moments. The urgency that once existed in the world seemed to settle at a distance, no longer pressing as closely against his awareness. What remained was a sense of quiet endurance, not in the face of struggle, but in the acceptance of life as it continued to unfold. And within that acceptance, there was peace, not as something achieved, but as something that had always been present, now more clearly felt. As the final chapter of Liu Bei's life begins to unfold, it does so without urgency, without sharp transition, and without the need for anything to be resolved. The path he has walked has already settled into something complete, not in the sense of perfection, but in the quiet fullness of a life lived with consistency, care, and presence. The world around him continues its movement, as it always has, yet his place within it feels different now. Where once he stepped forward to meet each change, he now allows those changes to pass gently around him. There is no withdrawal in this, only a natural softening, like the fading warmth at the end of a long day. His role is no longer defined by action, but by the quiet influence he leaves behind in those who continue forward. The connections that shaped his life remain close, though no longer bound by time or distance in the same way. The memory of Guan rests within him as a steady presence, calm and unwavering. The warmth of Zhang lingers softly, like an echo that never fully fades. And beside him, still grounded and composed, the presence of Zhuge Liang continues to offer quiet clarity, not through instruction, but through shared understanding. In these later moments, there is little need for conversation. Words, once useful, now feel secondary to presence. a glance, a pause. The simple act of sitting together carries more meaning than anything that could be spoken. The relationships that once moved through action have settled into something deeper, something that no longer depends on circumstance to exist. There are times when Liu Bei sits in stillness, perhaps near an open space where the air moves gently and the light shifts slowly across the land. The same sky that watched over his early years now stretches above him once more, unchanged in its quiet vastness. The patterns of nature, which once shaped his understanding as a child, now return not as lessons, but as familiar companions. The passing of time feels different here. It no longer moves in measured steps, marked by responsibilities or decisions. Instead, it flows softly, without edges, without pressure. Each moment exists fully on its own, without needing to lead into the next. In this space, there is nothing to prepare for, nothing to anticipate, only the calm presence of what is. As he reflects, there is no sense of holding on to specific events or outcomes. The life he has lived does not present itself as a list of achievements or moments to revisit. Instead, it exists as a feeling, a quiet awareness of continuity, where everything that has come before rests gently within him without needing to be examined. There is a certain peace in this, a deep and steady calm that does not depend on certainty or control. It is the same calm that was present in his earliest days, now expanded and deepened through experience. It does not need to be reached for or maintained. It simply is. When the time comes for his life to draw to a close, it does so in the same way it was lived, quietly, without resistance. There is no sense of interruption, no feeling of something being taken away. Instead, it is more like a gradual settling, a gentle release into stillness, where the boundary between presence and absence becomes soft and indistinct. Those near him do not experience this moment with sharp grief, but with a quiet understanding. There is a recognition that nothing essential has been lost, only transformed. The influence he carried, the steadiness he embodied, continues to exist in the people and places he has touched, moving forward without needing to be named. Like a lantern that has offered light through the night, his presence does not disappear suddenly. It fades slowly, leaving behind a warmth that lingers long after the flame itself has softened. That warmth remains, not as memory alone, but as something felt, something carried forward in quiet ways. And as the night settles fully, there is nothing left to hold on to, nothing that asks for attention. The story does not end with finality, but with stillness, with a gentle sense that everything has returned to where it belongs. The fields remain, the sky remains, the quiet rhythm of life continues, just as it did before, and just as it will beyond this moment. And within that quiet continuity, the presence of Liu Bei rests softly, not as a figure of the past, but as a feeling of calm, patience, and quiet strength that never needed to be loud to endure. The night deepens, and with it comes a gentle stillness, where the story fades not into silence, but into rest, If you enjoyed this story and would like more peaceful journeys like this, be sure to subscribe to Twilight Fables so you can return whenever you need a moment of calm and stillness.